Hello everyone, it's me, Bryson P. I hope you're doing well. I am an American living in the state of Kentucky, and we're going to be checking out a video today by Second Thought, which is America Compared. It is why other countries treat their people so much better. I've not seen this video, but based on the description, we're going to be looking at key metrics such as low-skilled job compensation, vacation time, length of the work week, and paid parental leave, other results, different things like that. So we're going to get straight into this, and here we go. All right, we got the headphones. We're about to start it. I just want to say, I believe this is the very first video I've ever seen by this channel. I've actually never heard of it until recently, thanks to one of the comments in a previous video of mine. So thank you for that, and here we go.
I'm going to say something that will probably offend.
Oh, sorry, I had a technical difficulty. We're ready to go now.
I'm going to say something that will probably offend many of my viewers. Let me preface this by saying that I, as an American, include myself in the following statement. Americans are quite possibly the most willfully ignorant people on the face of the planet. We have access to the sum total of all human knowledge, yet our understanding of the world rarely extends beyond our own country. And even then, the majority of Americans believe in a vision of the country that does not actually exist. It's not that we're stupid, we just tend to blindly accept that the US is the greatest place on Earth, and therefore don't see any reason to educate ourselves about the realities of the rest of the world.
I think that right there, just automatically, I don't know if I agree 1,000% with it, but I will say I agree with a lot of it, and is a very big reason why I'm doing these videos. I've always been very interested in learning about other countries, other parts of the world, really get a true understanding of this world, or at least a better one, the best I can.
In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on how America actually compares to other countries, and consider why the richest country on Earth fails to treat its people with dignity and fairness. I'm going to provide a list of important topics, then for each item we'll compare the American experience with that of citizens from other nations. Hopefully by providing a side-by-side comparison, you'll be able to see the stark contrast between how most Americans see their country and how it really stacks up against the competition. To give you an idea of just how skewed the American perception of our country really is, let's start with a pretty shocking example. Compensation for what are considered low-skilled jobs. We'll take the quintessential American company, McDonald's. McDonald's is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue. It operates in over 100 countries and serves over 69 million customers every day. As of 2018, McDonald's was the second largest private employer, with 1.7 million employees, behind Walmart's 2.3 million. How many times have you heard someone refer to McDonald's jobs or workers in a derogatory manner? For some reason, people who work at McDonald's are seen as inferior or lazy or have any number of other unfair and unkind assessments leveled at them. This probably stems from the old notion of flipping burgers being a job anyone can perform. But the animosity towards low-wage workers has grown significantly in the past few decades. And in America, McDonald's workers really do suffer a low wage. As of 2020, the average crew member at McDonald's makes $9 per hour. The average McDonald's cashier makes $8 per hour.
I got my first job when I was 16 years old, and it was working at the water park over the summertime as a cashier. I don't remember the exact amount that I got paid, but my point is, my second job, which was during the school year after the water park closed, which would be my second job, I worked at Sonic Drive-In, the fast food restaurant, and I was a car hop. I made $6.50 per hour because that was right after the federal minimum wage had went up to $6.50. So I made $6.50 per hour, and then on top of that, I made tips. That was at 16 years old in 2008, I believe. So yes, federal minimum wage has gone up quite a bit more since then, but not a whole lot. I mean, $6.50 to $9. Federal minimum wage is horrible, and you can't get by working at a fast food restaurant unless you're in upper management. Whenever you get into upper management and you do manage restaurants, you can make decent income, and managers for these restaurants do make decent money.
Minimum wage in the United States is $7.25, a rate which has not been raised in over a decade, and which should not be considered a reasonable wage for any position, considering the fact that a full-time minimum wage worker cannot afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States, and can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment in over 95% of US counties. Now, the all too common...
I'm not going to say how much I make, but I do make considerably more than our federal minimum wage. Plus, I also have commission on top of that. That being said, I could barely afford to live on my own as far as a single human being paying child support and paying my bills. There's no way that I can afford to live and pay rent, utilities, and everything else with the cost of a decent apartment around here. There are places around here that I could afford, but that would just be a mistake living there. I'd much rather live with other people and live with family members than to go live there.
Common response to data like this is something like, well, yeah, it's not a hard job. You should just find a better one. Here's a simple question. Should any job, regardless of technical skill required, pay workers so little that they cannot afford to rent even the smallest place to live? Not to mention other necessities like utilities, food, and medicine. Absolutely not. That is inhumane and cruel, especially coming from the second largest employer in the richest country on the planet. Other notable objections include, McDonald's has to make a profit. If they pay their workers more, they might go out of business. First of all, if you can't pay your workers a fair wage, your company should not be in business. End of story. But again, McDonald's is not struggling to make ends meet. In 2019, McDonald's raked in $21 billion in revenue. But no matter how obvious the exploitation of low-wage workers, Americans are hell-bent on praising the very companies doing the exploiting. Take this article on Reader's Digest, for example. It's titled, "This is what McDonald's workers really get paid." You see that and think, oh, nice, finally some news showing how poorly these workers are compensated. Then you scroll down and nope, they're actually praising McDonald's, saying things like, the food chain is also great for paying their workers fairly, and McDonald's is one of the highest paying fast food chains in the United States. This level of sycophancy is insane. If $8 or $9 an hour is some of the highest pay in the industry, that doesn't indicate that McDonald's is paying fairly, it indicates that a massive chunk of the population is being paid poverty wages. This is where taking an international perspective is so critical.
I like that statement. I agree with that.
If all you see is feel-good stories about how well McDonald's workers are paid, you'll never know how badly American workers are actually being treated. Let's take the same company, the same position, but in a different country. Here's a McDonald's in Denmark. The average McDonald's worker in Denmark, for doing the same low-skill job, makes $22 per hour.
Holy
well,
crap.
Hold on, you hear Reader's Digest scream from across the Atlantic. McDonald's workers in America get paid vacation days after just a year of work. Wow, enticing. In Denmark, when you're hired at McDonald's, not only are you making nearly 3 times what you would make in an American Mickey D's, you also instantly have access to a full year of paid family leave and a pension. No slaving away for a year to prove your value to the company. You're hired and you're treated fairly. Simple as that. McDonald's can afford to compensate all their workers like this, but they won't, because US laws allow them to exploit American workers to the point where they're basically slaves, earning the bare minimum to survive, paying all of their income and often going into debt just to pay rent, and having...
You know what I would do if I made $22 an hour? Well, that tells it right there that I don't make $22 an hour. But you know what I would do if I made $22 an hour? Shoot, my whole life would be a whole lot different.
No way to escape this vicious cycle because they're working such long hours. This is the case across all of America's low-wage jobs, of which there are many. The plight of the low-wage worker is incredibly dire, and all you have to do to understand that is look at how those same workers are treated in other wealthy
I could afford to live on my own if I made $22 an hour.
countries. Let's move on to another topic, work-life balance. Fair wages are definitely part of this equation. If you're paid fairly, you don't need to work a second job, which will free up your time to be spent elsewhere. But we're going to focus on other metrics, specifically the length of the work week, vacation time, and parental leave. Let's start with the US. Most Americans would say that 40 hours per week is full-time. That seems to be the general consensus. But, in keeping with the country's exploitative labor practices, the hilariously named Fair Labor Standards Act does not actually define what qualifies as full-time. That's left up to the employer. Okay, why does this matter? Well, think of your past part-time jobs. Did you get any benefits? Healthcare, 401k? Probably not. Most benefits, when they're offered at all, are reserved for full-time employees. Companies don't want to provide benefits because they affect their bottom line. America is all about cutting costs, and providing workers with fair compensation is a cost.
So, I've had jobs, especially whenever I worked in the security field and I worked in the hospitals. I would work on the 12-hour rotating shift. So basically, 1 week you're working 48 hours, 1 week you're working 36 hours, and you work on that type of rotating 12s. If you're familiar with that, then I don't have to explain. But yeah, you're working 36, 48, 36, 48. And then the jobs that I've had for the last handful of years and currently I work on average between 43 to 45 hours per week, and us cutting back to reduce overtime is us getting right at 40 hours. But whenever it gets warmer outside, I work in the heating and air conditioning industry, so the hotter it gets, the busier we are. And come summertime, that will lead up to, 45, 46, 47, up to 50 hours a week. So, and that's just normal. But then come wintertime, I might be doing 36. But with the job I have now, I'm strictly at 40, at least 40. And then beyond that, it could be, 50, 55 if it so chose to be.
So, imagine you apply for a full-time job at Best Buy. You're offered the job, but they tell you they only have part-time positions, but they can give you almost full-time. They make it sound like they're doing you a favor, offering you more hours than normal part-time. But this is just another example of employers exploiting their workers. If you work 37 hours per week, you're essentially a full-time employee, but they don't have to provide you any sort of benefits. No healthcare, no vacation, nothing. This is a common practice. Companies will hire people, but keep them just below the threshold for full-time to avoid providing fair compensation. I've seen it happen. I used to work at Best Buy and they would do it all the time. And that's just the companies who are still trying to appear generous. Others will simply not offer benefits at all, or set their full-time positions at 50 or 60 hours per week. Sales positions are notorious for this. They'll often say, well, we expect you to work 40 hours, but all the top sellers are working 60 to 70 hours per week. This is coercion. They're trying to pressure you into working more hours to benefit them, and the compensation is never what they claim it will be. By allowing employers to define full-time work, American workers are held captive by corporations, forced to either work absurd hours to qualify for full-time benefits, or find a second job to help cover the cost of things like health insurance. Both of these options lead to a terrible work-life balance, and
yeah, there's many times even now that I consider getting a second job just to be able to have the financial means to be even more financially independent and successful and have a better future for myself and just be more independent, be more just on my own, right? That's what everybody wants, is that independence and to have that financial security, that financial freedom. I'm not saying be rich. I'm just saying just to be comfortable. That's it. So, it's either find a way or get a second job, and, well, I'm always trying to find a way, right? Everybody is.
And as real wages have decreased and benefits have been offered less and less over the years, huge numbers of American workers have developed an unhealthy work-life balance. For example, in 1960, when workers had real bargaining power, only 20...
Now hang on. I'm not complaining about my job. I love my job. Don't get me wrong. I love my job. I'm very happy with it. Beyond happy with it. Y'all do not understand. Love it. And I hope to be there for a very long time. I really do. Love it. So there's a lot of unknown benefits and the benefits to it, to the place I work for and the company that I work for. So it's just very much worth it. And the pay that I get is well compensated on the back end that makes the pay worth it.
20% of American women worked. Today, 70% of children live in households where both parents are working full-time. Where does all this lead? As of 2020, over 85% of American men and 66% of women work more than 40 hours per week. We work 137 more hours per year than Japanese workers, 260 more than the British, and 499 more hours per year than the French. Why do other countries have such a better balance? Because many of them have laws that cap the length of the full-time work week. Companies are required to pay their workers fairly and allow enough time off for employees to maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's not the case in the US. Vacation time is a similar story. Whereas many other countries mandate that employers provide paid vacation and sick days, the US does not. In every industrialized nation, workers get more paid vacation days and holidays than in the US. Here's a depressing graph to illustrate just how poorly we treat our workers. France 31, Spain 34, Austria 38, America 0. 0 paid vacation days, 0 paid holidays. And remember, these are the mandated figures. Every Austrian worker gets a minimum of 38 paid days off per year.
Okay, so a previous company that I worked for, whenever I was in Arkansas, my children, yes, I have children, right? But they lived in the state of Kentucky, which is where I live now. But while I was living in Arkansas, the company that I worked for, I had been there for 2.5 years at that point, and my kids were coming to visit me and stay with me for 2 weeks during the summertime. Well, because even after 2.5 years working there, I still only had 5 days of vacation because of the way that the vacation rolls around. Like the first full year I was there, I got 2 days. Then the second year I got my first full 5. And then after my first 5 years, it went up to 2 weeks, which is 10 days. And then after 10 years, it went up to 15 days, which is 3 weeks paid vacation. And I think that was the max out. But my point is, since my kids were coming to visit me and stay with me for 2 weeks, I offered to basically take a whole week off of no pay. So I did 1 week with paid vacation and 1 week of no pay and just paid out of my savings because it was more important to spend time with my kids and have that time with them than it was to only get that 1 week because it's paid vacation. So you want the truth? Well, that's my truth. Everybody's is different. There's a lot of companies that have great benefits that do offer a lot of vacation, but unfortunately, there's a lot that don't offer any at all. And you either don't get paid, or you don't have a job, or you have very little vacation and you just take what you can get. It might sound harsh, but that's just a harsh reality. At least it is for my case and many, 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 many others.
Even in the worst possible employment situation, they'd still get 38 paid days off. In the US, many workers are lucky to get Christmas or Thanksgiving off at all, and the odds that it's a paid holiday? Next to 0. Let's move on to our final comparison, paid parental leave. Many Americans aren't even aware this is a thing, so let me explain. When an employee of a company has a child, sometimes they're offered parental leave, a period of time where they can stay home from work to bond with and take care of their new baby. This greatly benefits the employee, the child, and, in the long run, the company, because the employee will be happier, less stressed, and more loyal to the company. Of course, offering paid parental leave doesn't benefit corporations in the short term. And if there's one thing that encapsulates the American business philosophy, it's short-term gains over all else. So it won't surprise you to learn that the US is the only industrialized nation on the planet that does not mandate some amount of paid parental leave. This may be shocking to my American viewers because being able to get paid to spend time with your newborn child sounds like an impossible dream in our dystopian labor market. And
sure
honestly,
is.
it probably is impossible in our current America. We're so invested in self-destructive capitalism that even suggesting the possibility of paid parental leave would put US politicians out of a job.
So, with my second child, which would be my youngest, when she was born, I switched from working days to working nights because I worked 12-hour shifts, and I would work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Well, I switched to working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. so that way my wife at the time, she was able to basically be there and take care and raise the newborn during the day like a normal human being. And then since I worked rotating where I'd worked 36, 48, 36, 48, I would have days off. Well, I could still stay pretty much up all night. And since I was a night owl and I am a night owl, I'd be up throughout the night anyways. And so she would be able to sleep and I could take care and have that time through the nights with my child and she sleep. And then during the daytime, I could sleep and she had that time. And that's how we ran it. In order to maintain the household and in order to maintain that interaction between mother-daughter, father-daughter, and those types of things. That's just how we ran it. And I'm sure, again, there's a lot of people in this country that have ran it similar or have had to find a way to do it because there is no really other options. You don't get just time off for having a kid. unless again unless you are the mother and you work for a company that has that paid maternity leave, but definitely not for the father. There are a handful of companies now that are going to that, but again, we're so far from having like this.
That's not the case in the rest of the industrialized world. In fact, every other OECD nation, and even in many third world countries, new parents are guaranteed at least several weeks of leave. Let's take a look at a few of them. Ethiopia, a country with an annual gross national income of under $900 per person, offers 90 days of leave with 100% pay. Madagascar, 14 weeks at 100%. Afghanistan, 90 days. Denmark, 52 weeks. Norway, 56 weeks. France, 16 weeks at 100% pay for your first child, up to 26 weeks for your third, on top of 104 unpaid weeks. Lithuania, 52 weeks at 100%, plus an additional 52 weeks at 80%. Again, the United States does not mandate a single day of paid parental leave even for the mother, and the father is never considered. This means that workers in America have to choose to either pay the exorbitant cost of childcare or have one parent quit their job in order to take care of the child. These are both bad options, which often lead to economic precarity. But that doesn't matter to the companies employing American workers.
Pretty much just said that, and he clarified that and said that in a much better and a much easier light and a much easier way. But yeah, that's it. You see it, you hear it.
Profit is the only thing that matters. Hopefully, seeing these labor practices compared like this has made it clear that not only is the US not living up to its claim to being the greatest nation on Earth, but also that it consistently ranks poorly and often dead last in terms of labor metrics. Why is it that the wealthiest, most powerful nation on Earth can't pay their workers a fair wage, or provide healthcare, vacation time, or paid parental leave? You should realize by now that it's not that they can't, it's that they won't. Everything in America is beholden to the almighty dollar. Profit is the only motivator. If an action does not produce a greater profit, it will not be considered. Over the last few decades, Americans have watched as our livelihoods, our quality of life, and our dignity have all been stripped away by those who already make obscene amounts of money. Those in power say we're all in this together, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The ultra-wealthy and the world's largest corporations rely on Americans remaining ignorant. They rely on us accepting the lie that America is the greatest nation on Earth, that it couldn't possibly get any better. All you have to do to shatter that lie is to take a look around the world. Other nations take care of their citizens. Even impoverished nations, or nations that we've bombed into oblivion, take better care of their people than the US does. American workers need to relearn the language of class struggle and work together to break the wheel of the capitalist machine. If we want to claim that the United States is the greatest place on Earth, we need to make it that way.
All right, well, there we go. That was the second thought video on America Compared and why other countries treat their people so much better. As you see, I can agree with a lot of things in here, and hopefully I've given you some insight from another American, one that lives in the state of Kentucky, and, I've said things that were before even he said it, and I've never seen this video. This is the first time I've ever seen it, and, it's just unfortunately the way that we live and the type of things that we just acknowledge as the way that life is. So $22 an hour working in fast food, right? I could only imagine what my job and the work that I perform and the duties that I have, what my pay scale would be in other countries and the type of compensation that I would receive for the type of work that I do on a daily basis. So $22 an hour, if I made that here, that would just be awesome. And I think a lot of people would just be so much happier with that. And money doesn't ensure happiness, but it would definitely make life a lot easier, and it would definitely adjust, a lot of the poverty. But not just money, being able to have that maternity leave, and especially for the fathers, right? If you've seen my other videos, I talk about me being a felon, and I talk about the comparing United States prisons to other countries' prisons. Having that ability to have time off for the father to spend time with their child, and those types of things, those are steps that would need to be taken, I feel, for us to begin having those changes where, our mentality and the way that we are with kids, right? As fathers, we have more time off to be with our kids, then maybe we would be more involved in our children's lives, or you would have more fathers involved because they're able to have that time off to grow that bond and have that bond. But whenever you're always gone, constantly working because you have to provide everything because the mom stays home and she's not working, you never really grow that bond, and then things happen, you divorce, and then you're paying child support, everything else, and boom. I live a very fortunate life, even though I've been through some very unfortunate events, but I do believe we can do a lot better in this country, and we can treat our people a whole lot better. Not just in prisons or in jail, not just criminals, but just humanitarian wise, if that's even the proper way of using that in this sense. But we could definitely do better, and I hope that we do better in the future. So that's all I got for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave it a like, and if you didn't, that's okay. I understand either way. It's me, Bryson P. Have a good day, have a good night, whatever time it is when you watch this, and I'll see you on the next one.